What if I told you every random event in your life was actually an invisible staircase to your dream? Would you trust it more? This is not coincidence. Have you ever imagined a desire so clearly, felt it so vividly, only to watch your life take a series of strange, unexpected turns? Delays, meetings, detours, and then suddenly there it is, your desire fulfilled? The mind calls it coincidence, but in truth, it is the bridge of incidents, a sequence of seemingly unrelated events perfectly constructed to bring your assumed reality into form. You do not build this bridge, you walk it, and the miracle is you walk it unknowingly. Years ago, I found myself living in New York City, sleeping on a borrowed couch with barely enough to eat. But I had imagined a different life, one filled with purpose, travel, and spiritual teaching. I assumed it real. And then the strangest things began to unfold. A friend called me about a last-minute cancellation at a lecture hall. I filled in. Someone heard me speak. That led to another invitation. Then a publisher found me. I didn't plan any of it. I didn't need to. Each step was laid as if by invisible hands. One by one, I walked the bridge, never knowing it was the bridge, until I stood exactly where I had imagined. This is what I will show you today. The mystery behind the bridge of incidents and how you walk it without ever knowing. When you assume something to be true, you awaken a reality within consciousness that begins to cast a shadow into the world of form. The assumption is not idle fantasy, it is creation's command. Once you feel as though the thing desired is already yours, reality must comply. But how it comes is never your concern. The law of assumption starts the movement, and a bridge begins forming from where you are to where your desire already exists. The irony is, it never looks like a bridge. It looks like normal life. Your imagined reality becomes the seed of manifestation, but the bridge to its fulfillment often involves scenes that appear completely unrelated to your desire. These moments, a conversation, a delay, a meeting, are vital junctions on the road. They may seem like nothing, but they are the glue of the process. When you persist in living from the end, from the reality of your fulfilled desire, you allow these secondary moments to organize themselves in perfect sequence. You never recognize the bridge while you're crossing it. That is the test. You're asked to trust unseen events, to release control, and to let the universe rearrange itself around your assumption. Many abandon their desire because the first step looks like a problem or a step backward. But if you are wise, you will walk in silence, believing the process is underway, even if everything screams otherwise. When you are rooted in faith, you do not demand signs or proof. The desire becomes a knowing, a settled inner state, and this inner conviction has its own magnetic field. It pulls the unseen into form. The bridge unfolds under your feet because you are no longer searching for the path, you are already on it. The soul whispers, "It is done," and the body follows. You may encounter people or situations that seem to contradict your desire. That too is the bridge. When a thing must die for your new world to be born, it will be removed. When a relationship no longer aligns with your new identity, it may collapse. These are not failures, they are refinements. Your imagined world is the architect, and all else must bend to its design. You must persist in the mental image regardless of outer changes. If the bridge appears delayed, you return inward. If a door closes, you do not despair, you revise. The inner act of repetition, of mental rehearsal, keeps the bridge alive. One of the greatest spiritual practices is persistence without evidence. The bridge is not built by effort. It is walked by faith and sustained by inner clarity. Your bridge may involve strangers, unexpected messages, even so-called mistakes, but they are never random. The moment you assumed your desire is real, the entire fabric of reality began weaving its way to deliver it. A canceled train, a wrong number, a job loss. All these can be sacred turns if seen with the eye of understanding. The bridge borrows everything to deliver your assumption into visibility. The most important truth is this: every desire is already fulfilled. The only task is to walk the bridge. And yes, sometimes it looks like trouble, like loss, like confusion. But keep imagining, keep assuming. Every manifestation arrives on a path that looks ordinary until you look back. Then you realize it was sacred all along. When I speak of assumption, I do not speak of a hopeful wish or a fleeting desire. I speak of a conscious act of creation within the theater of the mind. It begins when a man dares to say, "This is what I am," even while all the facts around him declare otherwise. To assume is to plant the seed of destiny in the fertile ground of imagination. But the wonder of the process lies not merely in the assumption itself. It lies in the unfolding that follows, the bridge of insight. Most people are unaware that the world is not moved by their effort, but by their assumptions. Once an assumption is made and impressed upon the subconscious mind, life begins to reorganize itself in ways so natural, so ordinary, that the miracle is easily dismissed. It is not thunder or lightning. It is not a burning bush. It is a phone call, a missed train, a chance encounter, a book that falls open to a certain page. These things are not accidents. They are the bridge of incidents, a divine orchestration of every detail necessary to lead the dreamer from the assumption to the realization. What most fail to understand is that the bridge is automatic. It requires no conscious effort to plan the steps. One does not need to know how the desire will unfold, only that it already has. Once the assumption is made and felt as real, the mechanism of life begins to move. Invisible threads are drawn together. People you've never met are influenced to take action. Events are set into motion beyond your comprehension. You are not meant to interfere with this process. You are meant to trust it and walk in it. But here is the mystery. You walk this bridge unknowingly. You do not realize at the time that you are on the path to your desire. You may feel lost, confused, even disappointed. The bridge does not always look like a miracle. It may come clothed in the garments of delay, disruption, or even disappointment. But these are only the outer garments. The truth lies beneath, that every seeming obstacle is in fact an essential step in the unfolding of your assumption. This is why it is said that man does not know the means. He is only asked to know the end. The end is what you assume. The end is the state you claim to be true. The end is the desire fulfilled, experienced in consciousness. Once you have imagined it clearly, once you have felt it with intensity and sincerity, the end is yours. And once the end is yours, the means must come. The law that governs this process does not sleep. It does not forget. It does not require revision once the seed is planted. The assumption sets in motion the perfect sequence of incidents necessary for its manifestation. But again, it unfolds so naturally that most fail to recognize the bridge for what it is. They attribute the change to luck or hard work or coincidence. They do not see that they themselves are the cause. The world is not happening to you, it is happening from you. The scenes of your life, the characters, the events, the places you are drawn to, all of it is the outpicturing of your inner state. To assume a thing is to breathe life into it. And once you do, the whole of the universe becomes your servant, constructing the bridge without your conscious knowledge. You may think you are lost, but you are being carried. You may feel forgotten, but you are being positioned. The assumption knows more than you. It sees the whole path. You only see today. The bridge of incidents is not your responsibility to manage. Your only task is to remain faithful to the assumption, to hold it within as a living reality, to speak and think and act from that state. Everything else will follow. There will be moments when you want to act prematurely, when fear tells you to do something, to fix something. But action without assumption is useless. It is the inner movement that moves the outer world, always. When you assume and do not waver, you allow life to do its perfect work. What comes next may appear trivial, but trivial events are often the doorways to divine fulfillment. Trust the detour. Follow the nudge. Say yes to the invitation. Smile at the stranger. Listen to the impulse. These moments are not small. They are the threads of the bridge, sewn by unseen hands. I have known people who assumed boldly and yet doubted the process when life didn't look magical. I have done it myself, but every time I return to the assumption, every time I let go of control and surrender to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the bridge built itself before my very feet. Steps appeared where there had been none. People came who carried the next piece. Letters arrived. Doors opened. And always, when I look back, I could trace the entire path from the seed of assumption to the fruit of fulfillment. The bridge is real, it is silent, and it is sure. Walk it, and you will arrive. To understand the true art of manifestation, one must learn to rely not on outer evidence, but on the felt reality of the inner world. The moment a desire is conceived in imagination and experienced there as real, the seed is planted. The great error most make is to turn outward for proof before the seed has had time to bear fruit. They search for signs, ask for confirmation, and become disappointed when nothing seems to change. Yet it is not the outer world that confirms the truth. It is the inner conviction that gives birth to the world. The imagined reality, when held with faith and emotional certainty, begins to arrange the events of life without your conscious direction. There is no need to worry how it will come. Once the end has been accepted inwardly, once you feel the desire fulfilled and dwell in that assumption, all else begins to move. This movement is subtle, it is quiet, it does not announce itself, but it is powerful. It reshapes the landscape of your life. This is where the bridge of incidents comes alive. What appears to be normal occurrences, a job interview, a delayed train, a conversation overheard, these are the quiet instruments that carry the desire into manifestation. But they are only summoned into motion by your inner state. And unless that inner state is deeply felt and consistently lived in, the outer world remains unshaken. The imagined reality must be the only reality to you. That is the requirement. That is the discipline. One who lives in the end does not ask when it will happen. He does not wonder what steps to take. He does not seek evidence to reassure himself. Instead, he lives from the inner knowing that it already is. He thinks from the state, not toward it. He speaks and acts in alignment with that which is unseen, yet fully accepted. And in doing so, he becomes a participant in the divine orchestration of events, though he often does not recognize them as such until much later. The world outside you may appear unchanged, but it is already in motion. The fulfillment of your desire has begun its journey toward visibility, but you must not disturb it by turning your attention back to what is. The facts of life are not the truth. They are only echoes of your former state of mind. When you dwell in the imagined reality, you leave behind the limitations of what once was, and slowly, silently, everything rearranges itself to reflect your new conviction. To live in the end is to anchor yourself so deeply in the feeling of fulfillment that nothing can shake it. It means you have rehearsed the scene inwardly until it becomes more familiar than the conditions of the present moment. You walk through your day as one who already possesses the thing longed for. You speak as one who has already become. You act not to get, but because you already have. The subtle shift in perspective is the secret behind all manifestation. But the test will come. Life will present you with contradictions. You will be tempted to look again at the facts and declare them more real than the vision within. That is the moment of decision. Will you return to the old state, or will you persist in the new? Those who persist, who remain loyal to the unseen, find that what they imagined becomes visible, and when it comes, it does not come with fanfare. It comes through the bridge of incidents, a chain of natural, logical, often forgettable events that lead perfectly to the realization. To trust the imagined reality over outer evidence requires courage. It is the walk of faith. But every desire has its appointed hour, and no one can predict the bridge. All you must do is live from the end. Each time you return to that inner scene, you add strength to the seed, you water it with attention, nourish it with feeling, and protect it with mental discipline. The imagined reality begins to take on weight, presence, and substance. Eventually, it presses itself upon the world and appears as fact. And when it does, you will look back and see the bridge for what it was. You will remember the strange meeting, the closed door that led to a better one, the moment you almost gave up. Every piece will make sense. But in the middle of the journey, it is not always clear. That is why you must walk unknowingly, yet faithfully. You do not need to recognize the bridge. You only need to trust that it is building itself under your feet. The outer world is a shadow. It follows, it reflects, but it does not create. All creation begins within, so hold the image, feel the reality, know that it is done. And then let the bridge unfold, not with effort, but with confidence. Let life surprise you. Let it deliver in ways you never imagined. That is the beauty of this work. You do not dictate the path, you live the end, and the path reveals itself. To walk by faith and not by sight is to live from a reality that is unseen, yet more certain than anything the eyes could behold. The world of facts may present 1,000 contradictions, yet none of them matter when you understand the law. You are not required to know how the desire will come. You are not even asked to recognize the steps. You are simply invited to accept the end and walk forward as though it already were. The mystery lies in your ability to trust what cannot be proven, to embrace a path that unfolds moment by moment, without logic, without guarantees, yet leads you perfectly to the fulfillment of what you dared to imagine. The bridge of incidents is invisible to the rational mind. It does not declare itself. It does not shine with symbols or call attention to its sacred purpose. It appears as ordinary life, shaped by familiar people, unexpected delays, sudden turns, or quiet impulses. And yet, beneath this veil of normalcy, a divine current is moving. You are being led. The moment you assume the desire as already fulfilled, a new path began, not outside but within, and that inner movement initiated the outer journey. You may not know the bridge, but the bridge knows you. To walk in faith is to surrender the need for control. The rational mind wants to plan, to strategize, to measure progress, but faith needs no map. Faith does not argue with the seen, it simply holds fast to the unseen. When you know that your assumption is already a reality in the higher dimension of consciousness, you stop asking how. You stop needing proof. You begin to see every event, every interaction, every pause, not as an obstacle, but as a step, even if it appears at first as a detour. This is the challenge of the spiritual path, to walk with inner certainty while the outer world offers nothing but contradiction. You may feel alone. You may feel like nothing is happening. You may even question whether the assumption had any effect at all. And yet, the moment you return inward and rest in the fulfilled state, the world adjusts once more. It is not the outer that determines your progress. It is the inner conviction that governs all. To those who do not understand, it seems foolish. They ask, how can you say it is done when you have nothing? They see only the facts, and they forget that facts are echoes, reflections of past beliefs and assumptions. But the wise know that creation is not bound to appearance. They know that the delay is often the bridge taking form. They know that the storm is often the rearrangement of the old to make space for the new. They know that the silence is often the loudest confirmation of change. You do not walk the bridge with understanding, you walk it unknowingly, and yet you walk it perfectly. Each conversation that nudges you in a new direction, each opportunity that opens suddenly, each impulse that leads you somewhere new, these are the footprints of the bridge. You will not know their purpose until you arrive. And when you do, you will look back and see the perfection in every turn. The secret, then, is to refuse to judge by appearances, to feel rich while the bank account is empty, to feel loved while no one calls your name, to feel healed while the pain still lingers. This is not delusion, it is creation. You are not denying reality, you are choosing the higher one. The bridge will take care of the rest. All you are asked to do is to live the end, think from the end, speak as one who already possesses the desire. That inner position is what triggers the unfolding. There is no punishment for doubt, but there is delay. Every time you turn back to the world and say, "Where is it?" you plant yourself in the old state. The bridge cannot lead you from what you have not left. You must let go of the former self. You must release the identity tied to lack or loneliness or sickness. That old self cannot inherit the new reality. The transformation must begin within, and the outer must obey. Every bridge has a rhythm. Sometimes it is fast, with rapid changes. Sometimes it is slow, with subtle nudges, but it is always faithful. You may think you are doing nothing, but your daily choice to dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the most powerful action you could take. The universe reshapes itself to match your inner world. Events align, people appear, opportunities unfold, not because you chased them, but because you became the version of yourself that draws them in. That is why you do not need to recognize the bridge. You only need to stay loyal to the end. You can rest because it is done. You can breathe because the way is forming. You can smile in the silence because you are not waiting, you are becoming. And in becoming, the path becomes visible. The invisible hand begins to write the story around you. One step becomes two, the impossible becomes ordinary, and what once seemed far becomes near. So walk, even if you cannot see. Walk in the state of the wish fulfilled. The bridge is already beneath your feet. To possess inner conviction is to carry the fulfilled desire within you as if it were already expressed, already yours, already done. When that inner knowing becomes more real than what is seen, you are no longer moved by appearances. You do not need evidence. You do not need confirmation. You live from a deep assurance that what has been assumed in consciousness must unfold. Because consciousness is the only cause. This conviction is not based on logic, not supported by external proof. It arises from an inner communion with a reality that already exists, although unseen. Most people approach life from the outside in. They react to circumstances, allowing outer facts to dictate their emotional and mental states. But the creative individual, the awakened one, understands that life flows from within, outward. If you believe only what your senses tell you, you are bound to repeat the past. For your senses can only register what has already been expressed. But when your belief no longer depends on what is visible, when it flows from imagination, you begin to recreate your world according to your inner assumptions. Inner conviction is not a matter of trying hard to believe. It is a quiet certainty that results from repeatedly entering the state of the wish fulfilled, until it feels familiar, until it feels natural. You walk in that state, speak from that state, and rest in that state. And this state of being begins to project itself onto the world. People may not understand your calm. They may question why you smile when there is nothing, why you act as though your dream has already come true, but you no longer require agreement from the world, because your reality is already secure within. One of the most powerful truths is this: the world moves not by your effort, but by your belief. Not a shallow belief that flickers in times of hope, but a sustained knowing that what you have assumed must become. When this knowing is fixed, the bridge of incidence is activated. Everything begins to arrange itself to match the internal image you carry, and yet most will not recognize the connection. They say, "It just happened," or "I was lucky," or "What a strange coincidence," but they forget what they had once imagined. They forget the seed planted in the silence of their mind. You cannot walk this path with divided attention. If one moment you dwell in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, and the next you return to fear or doubt, you will disturb the unfolding. The bridge is most effective when your conviction is constant. The slightest shift in identity changes the scenery of your life. So you are asked to persist, not in effort, but in alignment. To remain internally faithful, even when nothing appears to change. It is not a matter of doing more, but of knowing more deeply. In the world of imagination, everything is already accomplished. When you walk through that scene with emotion, when you touch it, taste it, hear the voices, feel the satisfaction, your subconscious receives it as fact. And once it is accepted, the world must echo it. You may not know how, and you do not need to. The inner act carries more weight than 1,000 outer actions. The conviction born from repeated inner experience is the key. And how do you know if you truly believe? Look at your reactions. Do you become fearful when the outer world appears unchanged? Do you panic when a door closes? Do you question your desire when circumstances appear contrary? These are signs that inner conviction is not yet complete. But there is no judgment here, only awareness. You are simply being invited to return to the inner world, to rehearse once more, to feel it more deeply. The deeper the feeling, the stronger the faith. And faith is not blind. Faith is inner vision. Those who live from inner conviction find that the bridge of incidents becomes effortless. They no longer seek signs. They no longer ask for proof. They walk with an invisible confidence. They allow the world to catch up to what they already know within. They may take action, yes, but action becomes an extension of inner belief, not a substitute for it. Inspired action flows from identity. It is never forced. It is never anxious. It is calm, certain, and aligned. You are always manifesting from your conviction, whether that conviction is one of fear or faith. Life does not discriminate. It gives you what you persist in imagining. So choose the conviction that uplifts, that frees, that inspires. Let that be the foundation of your daily experience. And when doubts arise, as they sometimes will, return to the inner scene. Re-enter the world where it is already done. And as you do, the old convictions begin to fade, replaced by new ones. And the bridge responds. People move. Events shift. Reality begins to reflect what you have already accepted in the silence of your soul. Once the inner knowing is established, the outer world becomes irrelevant. You no longer wait, you already are. And that state of being is what manifests. The bridge is not revealed to the one who waits. It is revealed to the one who walks. Contradictions are not signs of failure. They are confirmations that the bridge is active. When you assume a new state of being, when you truly feel from the end and dwell in the conviction that your desire is already fulfilled, life begins to shift. But this shift often does not appear as blessing. Instead, it may come first as loss, confusion, or delay. The old structure must make way for the new. That process can look like disorder, it can look like chaos, but you must remember, the contradictions are not the enemy. They are the very path to fulfillment. What many people do not understand is that manifestation is not the addition of something new. It is the rearrangement of what already is. The entire world is already complete in imagination. You are not creating anything. You are selecting. And once you have selected the end and assumed it, all of life bends itself to mirror that state. But if your previous self-image was rooted in lack, limitation, fear, or shame, that image must fall away. The people, situations, and habits that once reflected that image must be removed, changed, or transformed. That process of removal is rarely gentle. It is rarely predictable. And yet it is always perfect. To the untrained eye, the unfolding of the bridge may seem like opposition. Things may break down, relationships may end, opportunities may close. Doors you thought were yours may be shut in your face. But if you can hold the assumption, if you can stay faithful to the reality you have chosen, you will find that what looked like a setback was in fact the next step. What felt like a loss was a repositioning. What seemed like a betrayal was a redirection. You are not meant to explain or analyze the bridge. You are meant to walk it. That walk requires stillness on the inside, even when the outside seems unstable. It means choosing again and again to return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, especially when life tempts you to believe the opposite. The contradiction is not proof of failure, it is a test of loyalty. Will you stay loyal to the invisible? Will you remain rooted in the end? Or will you abandon your vision the moment the world disagrees? The world must contradict you at first. It must reflect your former state until the new one has taken root. Do not be surprised by this. Expect it. Welcome it. Know that the greater the transformation, the more forcefully the old may resist. But its resistance is weakness. It is the last breath of a dying self-image. The moment you feel the desire as real and dwell in that state, the former reality begins to unravel. This unraveling is the bridge. It is not the destruction of your dream, it is the clearing of the path. The key is to see through the appearance, to bless what seems to oppose you, to recognize the divine choreography even in discomfort. Do not curse the confusion, do not resist the change. Every unwanted event that arises after assumption is there for a reason. It is serving you. It is adjusting the world to make room for the new state you now occupy in consciousness. And the faster you accept it, the smoother the bridge becomes. This is not passive surrender. This is spiritual authority. It is standing firm in the knowledge that everything is unfolding in your favor, not because you can see it, but because you have already claimed it. The contradiction is part of the journey. The things that fall apart are not being taken from you, they are being released, because they do not belong to the reality you have chosen. They are fragments of the old man, the old life, the old story. Let them go. When something in your world breaks after a powerful assumption, do not ask, why is this happening? Instead, declare within, this too is the bridge. The relationship that ends, the job that disappears, the unexpected move. All of these are the incidents you walk through unknowingly. They are not in your control, but they are under law. The law knows what must be moved, what must be removed, and what must arrive in order to fulfill your desire. Your only task is to remain unmoved internally, to persist in the feeling of the end. That inner fidelity shapes the bridge. Sometimes the contradiction becomes so intense that you are tempted to give up, but that is when you are closest. The pressure increases before the breakthrough. Do not be fooled by the noise of the senses. The bridge is often invisible until it is behind you. One day you will look back and realize that everything, every tear, every delay, every unanswered question was part of a perfect map. A map drawn by the unseen hand of your own imagination. A map only visible in hindsight. So walk calmly, even through the storm. Do not resist the contradiction. Do not fear the unraveling. What you see is not the truth. The truth is what you have assumed. And because you have assumed it, it must come to pass. Every contradiction is just another step on the bridge you did not know you were walking. Persistence is not physical effort. It is not about how long you try or how much you do. It is the sustained act of remaining loyal to the unseen assumption, even when the visible world presents you with the opposite. The bridge of incidents, the series of events leading from your current reality to the fulfillment of your desire, is constructed and walked through this unwavering persistence. The one who persists in the inner conviction walks safely across the invisible path life has built for him, though he may not realize it while doing so. To persist means you do not return to the old self. Even when outer evidence contradicts the imagined end, you do not drop into despair. You do not abandon the vision just because the senses cannot yet perceive it. Persistence is not force, it is fidelity. It is the discipline of assuming your desire is already fulfilled and returning again and again to that state, no matter what the outer world says. Every time you do this, you are reaffirming your creative claim. You are watering the seed of assumption and preparing it for harvest. The world has taught you to respond to appearances, to trust in what you can see, to be rational, to be realistic, but reality is not defined by what is visible. Reality begins in consciousness and moves outward into form. If you live by what you see, you are merely recycling past assumptions. You are not creating, you are reacting. Persistence severs this cycle. It lifts you above reaction and anchors you in creation. By returning to the end again and again, regardless of the conditions, you impress the subconscious mind more deeply than any external fact ever could. It is often said that the bridge of incidents appears when the assumption is sustained, but many expect the bridge to look spiritual, to feel miraculous, to be drenched in signs and symbols. What they receive instead is normal life. The same phone calls, the same places, the same people, and they wonder if anything is happening at all. But this is the mystery. The bridge is not built in magic. It is built in movement. The phone call you didn't expect, the idea that came quietly in the night, the decision to walk a different street. These are the bricks of the bridge. Only the persistent see it through. Only those who refuse to shift their inner state, who hold fast to the feeling of the fulfilled desire, get to watch the world reorganize around them. When you return to the assumption often enough, it becomes natural. It stops being a practice and starts being your identity. And when identity changes, the world must follow. The universe does not reward those who try harder. It reflects those who remain stable in their inner world. A man who changes his concept of self and holds it, truly holds it, becomes it. This does not mean you will feel inspired every day. There will be days when you doubt, when the world pushes against your inner vision. Persistence is not the absence of doubt, it is the refusal to obey it. When doubt knocks, you do not entertain it, you do not argue with it. You return to your imagination and feel the truth once again. You revive the feeling of having already received. That simple act of repetition, done in silence and sincerity, is what gives life to your desire. It is what builds the bridge beneath your feet. Sometimes persistence looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like action. But it is always born from inner knowing. When you act, act from the state of the wish fulfilled. Do not act to make something happen. That is effort. That is anxiety. When you persist in the state of fulfillment, inspired action arises naturally. You say the right words, go the right places, make the right moves, not because you planned them, but because they flowed from who you had become. This is why it is written, having done all, stand. Stand in the assumption, stand in the conviction that what you desire is already yours. Let the world dance. Let it shift, resist, challenge, or echo your past. Do not move internally. Keep your inner state still. Your consistency in feeling will outlast all contradictions. The world will eventually bend. It must. For what you sustain within, no matter how hidden, must take shape without. Those who fail in manifestation do not fail because they imagined wrongly. They fail because they did not persist. They visit the state for a moment and then return to fear. They touch the vision lightly and then doubt when it does not immediately appear. But creation is not built on flashes of imagination. It is built on the continual return to the desired state. That is persistence. That is power. That is how the bridge becomes walkable. Every step on the bridge is a mirror of your most dominant inner state. If you walk in confusion, the bridge will appear confusing. If you walk in certainty, the bridge will unfold in order. If you walk in lack, the bridge will reflect scarcity. But if you persist in the end, if you carry the feeling that it is already done, each step becomes a confirmation of your assumption. The bridge becomes more visible in hindsight than in foresight. You may not understand the path until you reach the promise. And once you do, you will know that your persistence was never wasted. It was the path itself. The bridge does not care who or what it uses. The means are not your concern. The law of consciousness is impersonal. Once you assume a state and persist in it, the entire universe becomes the obedient servant of that assumption. Everything begins to move toward the fulfillment of what you have dared to claim. It does not matter whether the world believes you. It does not matter if the people involved understand. It does not even matter if they consciously agree with your desire. What matters is that you have imagined, felt, and remained in the end. The bridge is not selective about tools. It will use anything and anyone necessary to bring your inner reality into form. This is one of the most marvelous aspects of this teaching, the discovery that the whole of life bends itself to serve the individual who has fixed his inner gaze upon a definite end. The bridge will use strangers. It will use forgotten memories. It will use old contacts you haven't spoken to in years. It will stir a person you've never met to take an action that blesses your path without even knowing they are doing it. This is not manipulation. This is law. Just as water flows downhill, consciousness flows from assumption to embodiment, bringing with it the forms required to complete the journey. But because the bridge looks so ordinary, most people miss it. They call it coincidence. They call it chance. They fail to connect the moment of deep assumption with the sudden changes in their external world. A clerk says something helpful, a message is delayed and arrives at the perfect moment. A friend invites you somewhere without knowing why, and there it is, the next step. But if you are not dwelling in the state of the fulfilled desire, you will not recognize these movements for what they are. You will see them as random, meaningless. Only the one who has already accepted the end can discern the means. I have seen people manifest extraordinary changes without lifting a finger, simply because they assumed their desire boldly and rested in that knowing. And I have seen others work and struggle and fight only to repeat the same patterns, not because they lacked effort, but because they never changed their state. The one who knows the end is already secured does not strive. He walks through life gently, open, receptive, allowing the bridge to reveal itself step by step. There is no need for anxiety or manipulation. What must come, comes. Often the very people who once opposed you become the instruments of your blessing. Those who rejected you return, compelled by something they cannot explain. Employers who once overlooked you are suddenly drawn to your name. A person you thought would never help is moved to offer assistance. This is not because you persuaded them, it is because you changed yourself. The world reflects not what you want, but who you are. And once you are different within, the world cannot help but treat you differently. This is why you must never try to force the bridge. You cannot guess how it will unfold. If you insist that a certain person must act or a certain door must open, you restrict the law. You limit the intelligence that sees far beyond your current understanding. Let the bridge form as it will. Your only task is to remain faithful to the end. Trust that the bridge is forming. Trust that everything is working for you, not because you see it, but because you have assumed it. The unseen is more reliable than the seen. Many will say, but I cannot believe it because I see no movement. That is because they are watching the world instead of watching their imagination. The movement always begins within. The assumption accepted deeply and persistently will summon the necessary people, events, and conditions without effort. It will even use those who oppose you, for the law plays no favorites. It simply fulfills the feeling impressed upon the subconscious. You do not need to know how. You only need to know what, and let the bridge do the rest. The bridge will use the most natural, logical means available, but only in hindsight will you recognize how perfect it all was. What seems accidental today will later appear as genius. What felt like a delay will reveal itself as divine timing. Every gesture, every movement, every encounter will be seen for what it was. A golden step on the bridge toward your assumption. But only the faithful see this. Only those who walk by inner vision can discern the order in what appears to be disorder. And so you bless the strangers. You thank the closed doors. You accept the unusual suggestions and take the small opportunities, knowing that all are part of something greater than you can yet comprehend. You do not need to plan every step. Life is doing it for you. Because you have assumed the end, the means are guaranteed. Even your so-called mistakes are absorbed into the plan. You may stumble, but the bridge carries you still. The desire is fulfilled, not because of your power, but because of your position. You are dwelling in the right place within, and the outer must follow. That is the wonder of the law. It needs no assistance. It only needs you to remain still, confident, and faithful. And then it will use whatever and whoever it must to take you there, to the place you've already arrived in imagination. Every manifestation has its own bridge, though few recognize it while they are crossing. The reason is simple. The bridge never feels like a bridge. It feels like life. It feels like ordinary moments, unremarkable details, passing conversations, forgotten impulses. The divine hand moves so quietly, so subtly, that the human mind dismisses its work as randomness or coincidence, and yet each moment is a thread being pulled through the fabric of your reality, rearranging, restoring, and ultimately producing the image you once dared to claim as yours. To the untrained observer, the process of manifestation looks like luck or timing. But for the one who understands the law, nothing is luck, nothing is timing. Everything is the outpicturing of a state long ago assumed. The mind always forgets what it imagines. It lets go of the image once it has been impressed upon the subconscious. But the body, the world, the very cells of reality remember. They respond, they rearrange. And what you once felt so vividly in the silence of your room comes to greet you in the marketplace of the world, wearing the garments of people, places, and events. But here lies the mystery. Not every bridge feels magical. In fact, most of them feel deeply mundane. And that is the great deception. Because you have imagined with fire, you expect fire to fall from the sky. But instead, a friend calls, a meeting gets postponed, a bill comes unexpectedly, and then an idea follows. You are led not through wonders, but through whispers. The one who waits for signs, the one who looks for proof, never sees the proof. But the one who walks in silence, who continues to feel the end as done, finds that every door opens in its time, every encounter flows without effort, and the road beneath his feet was paved before he ever stepped upon it. You must abandon the belief that the bridge must feel spiritual. You must let go of the need to be inspired at every turn. The law does not require your constant excitement. It requires your inner steadiness. The bridge can feel like confusion. It can feel like nothing is happening. It can feel like wrong turns. But that is only because your senses cannot yet interpret the language of consciousness. The outer world is slow to reveal what has already shifted within. It trails behind your assumption like a shadow, gradually reshaping itself to match your new inner position. There are some who imagine grandly, then walk away from the dream the moment something uncomfortable appears. They say, "This cannot be the bridge. This cannot be the path to my desire." But what they do not understand is that sometimes the fulfillment of a desire requires the death of an old structure. It may require the ending of a job, the loss of a friendship, the disintegration of a plan. But these things are not destruction, they are transition. They are the invisible hand of the law removing what cannot exist in your new world. You think you are being delayed, but you are being delivered. The bridge does not require your understanding, it only requires your stillness, your trust, your loyalty to the end. You do not need to like the path, you only need to know that it is leading you. And it always is. For every desire that is sincerely felt and accepted as already yours begins immediately to clothe itself in the forms necessary for its appearance. You do not need to know the how. You are not responsible for the how. You are responsible for the state. Every fulfilled desire began in silence. It began as a feeling, a mood that was impressed upon the deeper mind. And from that point forward, the bridge was set in motion, even before the outer conditions change. The process is already complete. You will be led, you will be nudged, you will be carried, even through disappointment, even through chaos, to the very thing you imagine. It may not come through the door you expected. It may not arrive in the wrapping you preferred, but it will come. The form must match the feeling. And when the feeling is fixed, the form must follow. Your only task is to live the end, to return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled every time you are tempted to doubt. You are not trying to create, you have already created. The moment you imagined it clearly and felt it deeply, it was done. The rest is motion. The rest is movement. The rest is life catching up to who you already are. And life will always catch up. It has no choice because it is you. There is no separation between you and the world you experience. All of it is reflection. All of it is response. All of it is your bridge. So trust the delay, trust the silence, trust the mess, trust the conversation that doesn't make sense, the strange invitation, the door that closes. These are not interruptions, they are instructions. Follow them. Walk quietly, and when you look back, you will see the genius of every step. You will see that you are being led, not by chance, but by law, not by logic, but by love. The bridge was never separate from you. It was always your own imagination unfolding itself into space and time, guiding you unknowingly to what was already yours. And so, the bridge is walked, not by force, not by intellect, not by the striving of hands, but by the silent, faithful movement of consciousness. What you have accepted within becomes the rhythm of your world. What you assume in stillness is echoed in events. The journey is never about striving to make something happen. It is about becoming the one for whom it has already happened. The world does not respond to what you want. It responds to who you are in imagination. All along the path, the bridge weaves itself quietly beneath your feet. From the first moment you feel the desire as fulfilled, the invisible steps begin. People shift, circumstances rearrange. You are not meant to recognize the bridge, only to trust that it is there, and it is always there. Every delay, every detour, every closed door is the law in perfect motion, delivering not punishment but precision. Each step, no matter how small or strange, is sacred. What you hold as true within becomes form without. The only question is, will you persist? Will you remain loyal to the unseen reality when all the facts scream otherwise? Will you stand unmoved in the feeling of fulfillment, even as the outer world dissolves and reshapes itself? For the one who does, the world becomes soft clay, yielding, shaping, submitting to the touch of the inner man. You have no one to change but self. No bridge to build, only one to walk. No future to chase, only a state to inhabit. The desire is already yours. The bridge is already built. And the journey is simply a return, not to something new, but to what has always been waiting for you to remember it was done. Remain in the end. Trust its silent pull. Walk it unknowingly and arrive.